So I'm back. So I wanted to drop my own version of story time, basically giving the top 10 memorable stories that happened to me personally. Um, Unique and crazy stories that I feel like I should share with y'all. So the first story that I want to talk about is the time when one of my family members was falsely accused of Grape. Now, I ain't gonna say this person's name because who knows? You never know when a video will go viral. So I don't want to put him on Front Street like that. But him and everybody in the family, I know who I'm talking about. So I believe we was 15, 16, because we around the same age. So my grandmother, my grandmother had just moved to our new house. Step granddad had just retired from the plant. So they had got them a new house. So me and my cousin and stuff used to go out there from time to time. So when we was out there, my cousin, cause there was a park around the corner from where she lived, we used to go up there, play basketball and stuff like that. So my cousin ended up meeting a girl up at the park, I believe. And ever since then, it was basically his girlfriend for whenever he go over our grandma house. So we went over our grandma house. One time, I think it was believe during the summer. So this is when I had my first girlfriend, my first ex too. So I was just starting to have sex too. So what we used to do is that my grandma had the upstairs and the downstairs. The upstairs was the bedrooms. The downstairs was the living room, kitchen, and everything like that. So my grandma would always be in the living room and always be downstairs. So we would be upstairs. So we used to take our girls in the bathroom, and this is when we would just start having sex. So I know that he did that with his girl while I was in the room, and I didn't did that before. So a couple weeks go by, my school done started back by now. So my mom comes to me and tell me that such and such, such and such is about to go to prison. And I'm like, about to go to prison for what? And she said, for grape, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, grape. I'm like, how did he grape his own girlfriend? What's going on? Like, I mean, I know that it can technically happen, but I'm like, I mean, it looked consensual to me because I was there when they was actually doing. She didn't come out screaming or nothing like that, but you never know. Buyer's remorse. So what come to find out what happened is that this girl was a church girl. Like her family was real big into church. She went to church every Sunday. So just so happened the Sunday or the church session right after the situation happened at my grandma's house, the pastor ended up doing a topic on sex before marriage, basically. And he was talking about sex before marriage and how it was bad and how you should wait to have sex wait to get married before you have sex. And I guess that really struck her because she knew that she had been having sex. So she started crying in church and feeling so bad and so, caught up in emotions, thinking that she gonna go to hell, I'm gonna go to hell. So of course the parents like, what's going on? What's going on? So to save her own ass, she said that I had sex, and they like, who you had sex with? And she told them my family member, and then it was like, when did this happen about this? Then she was like, yeah, he raped me. I didn't want to do it. He made me do it. I didn't want to do it. He made me do it. Now, this is where the story gets. We got to be truthful with the story now. This family member is a aggressive nigga. I mean, is an aggressive person. I mean, yeah, I mean he's somebody. Let's say that we done two man a couple times, and I done been with him while with his girls and trying to initiate. And yeah, the dude is kind of aggressive. I ain't gonna lie on that point, but there's a big difference between being aggressive and raping somebody. It's a big difference between that. So she say that or whatever. So of course. They come down to my grandma's house, knocking on the door, and my grandma, unfortunately, did she just, like I said, they just retired. She just moved to a nice neighborhood. If you're from Michigan, you know where Romulus is by the airport. She, you know, out the hood, because she stayed in the projects her whole life. My grandma did. Since my mom was born, my grandma always stayed in the projects. Up until now, she finally moved and got her a nice condo and everything. So, but I say that to say is that my grandma is still hood at the end of the day. So they banging on her door. And I say this because they banging on her door, coming to her with confrontation and aggressive and accusations off rip. So you already know how that kind of go. So grandma ended up answering the door. So then they're like, where's your blah 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 family member? And he raped my daughter and going off and stuff. So my grandma like, hold the F up. I don't know what you talking about. And I didn't even know that they was having sex. I didn't know none of it. Then they like, oh, it happened underneath your roof. It happened here. So of course my grandma going off, I ain't know about that and snapping. So hurried up, got him on the phone. So actually got his mom on the phone because remember at this time, the last era, we actually had house phones at this time. This is right before everybody started having cell phones. So I can always remember. Actually, 15, no, actually, we just started having cell phones. Actually, this is when Boost Mobile with the church phones. That was my first ever cell phone and what was popular when I was in high school. So we just started having cell phones, but it was still like the end of house phones too. So because we still had a house phone. So his mama answered, ended up telling him or whatever. So word ended up getting around to my mom, then me. So this person's let's just say this person parent is a at the time either a police officer or a chief of police. I don't know if they was chief of police yet or a sheriff yet, but they actually ended up becoming a sheriff too. So you already know they in law enforcement, and this is this person parent. So you already know how that went. So they um lead going to the investigation and everything like that. And my yeah, I had to edit that out. I made a mistake and said the person. I slipped up for a minute. I accidentally said the person, but where was I at? So yeah, this person parent um was in law enforcement. So he ended up getting in the leading the investigation and because it actually ended up happening in his district or whatever he was over. So, but everybody, oh, that's what I'm about to say. Everybody was believing that my family member did it. Unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say that, even I believe that I didn't believe that he did it, but I knew that it was a possibility because, like I said, he is kind of aggressive. So, um, they on his ass for months and months and months, talking about you going to prison, you better confess, all of this old type of stuff. So then this person banned from my grandma's house, can't go to my grandma's house no more. So right before it was about to start going to court and everything like that, for some reason she come to realize that lying and falsely accusing somebody is also a sin and wrong. Like it finally hit her, like, yeah, sex before marriage is wrong, but so is lying on somebody and ruining somebody's life. So she ended up confessing and saying that she made the whole thing up. She was scared because she had sex before marriage, she didn't want to get in trouble, and blah blah blah, and all of that type of stuff. So of course, nothing happens to her, per usual. And I slipped up and said their name again. But this family member ended up having to continue their life basically, but always had that stigma and that over their head ever since then. So um also containing to this story, a weird plot twist to this story is that this family member ended up getting someone pregnant and It's crazy that stuff like this happened. I felt like that story time part one wasn't just enough. So I wanted to include a part two story about this person real quick. So at a party, this person at a party, probably now like 17, 18 years old. So they're they at a party down the street. So they drinking and stuff, and they ended up having sex with somebody in one of the rooms or whatever. Girl ended up getting pregnant. So this family member ended up not wanting to claim the kid because for one, he woke up and he realized that she was hideous. He woke up and realized that he had too much to drink, and basically it was a girl that he never would have talked to. For one, and number two, they didn't even know each other's name because she started going on a hunt and looking for him because all she knew was the first well, basically his nickname. We just gonna say that. So she didn't know his last name, where he lived at, nothing like that. So unfortunately for him, people talk, the neighborhood talk, this was still in the same neighborhood. They ended up snitching on him and saying where he lived. So ended up getting confronted with that, ended up getting confronted with the child and everything like that. So child is born. He said that the child is ugly like the mama. Just straight up. Because I asked him, like, dang, like, where your daughter at? Like, what's going on or whatever. And he basically, like, like, I'm not claiming that. I'm not claiming that none of my kids, because I think he already had one kid at the time already, if I'm not. No, this was his first kid, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But he ended up saying, like, I'm basically not claiming that kid. I can't claim that kid. So, what that ended up happening, the kid ended up growing up, becoming a teenager now. And of course, unfortunately, the teenager ended up getting into sex work, first it started twerking online, then it became sexual talk with older men until she was eventually um abducted and still don't know what happened to her to this day. So I'm gonna end it with that. I'm gonna end it with that, and that's the first story time that I wanted to talk about. And the moral of the story, because I only talk about stuff, but the moral of the story is that yes, and it's unfortunate that people do get falsely accused of Grape, and that's one of the stories that I know personally. Somebody getting falsely accused of Grape because of buyer remorse, and we know that do happen. Is that the person do consent, but then they regret it when they wake up or when they not drinking, and that's why it's so dangerous for women to drink. I would say like women like drinking with dudes around, like you really got to be careful and pace yourself to really have some good friends and this should, I always believe that there should be one friend, man, and for men and women who don't really drink like that. He might sip or, but that's aware of what's going on. So can keep stuff in check for real because dangerous stuff like this do happen. Even from the story again, when I told you with my family member, with them having that kid from one drunken night and didn't even know each other's name. Like that goes to show a lot of kids have been born like that. So that's another thing to take in mind too is that be careful who you drink around for real. And I always tell women it's unfortunate to say like you shouldn't be hanging alone with a dude, spending the night with a dude, drinking with a dude, smoking and just turning up on a one-on-one if you don't want to do nothing with that dude. Not saying that it's because sometimes it might not happen. You could say, I drink and smoke with dudes all the time and nothing happened. But you have to know that there's this chance that something that could happen, especially if y'all on that type of time and you got to know how this person is and what type of time they on. And I'm out. And stay tuned for Storytime Part 2, where I'm going to talk about my ex who I caught sleeping with her brother. You don't want to miss that for sure. And I'm out.